Good evening, Galileo. All right, yeah, hey. It is good to be with you, and I bring warm greetings from Bright Divinity School, even though most of them are in sunny San Diego. But Newell Williams, our president, the dean, Joretta Marshall, the faculty, staff, and the student body. But in addition to words of welcome, congratulations are in order too. For this marks 1 year of common worship for Galileo. What started a year ago on Sunday, December 1st, 2013, the first Sunday of Advent, now culminates on Sunday, November 23rd, 2014, with the Reign of Christ, or Christ the King Sunday. The curtain will soon fall on year A, especially now that we're in a theater. And next Sunday, a new curtain will rise and open for the Gospel of Mark, or year B. Everything Galileo has done this past year, from body prayers to reflection stations to preaching to sharing resources to sharing a meal, it all culminates on this Sunday. There is, however, a problem. One problem in particular that comes to mind. The Reverend Dr. Katie Hayes, lead conspirator in this conspiracy-driven church, is in sunny California, San Diego, in fact, enjoying the erudite and multi-syllabic discourses ad nauseum of the terminally degreed American Academy of Religion and the Society of Biblical Literature. Setting this problem aside, the Gospel of Matthew is not quite unlike Galileo Church. Just as Galileo has moved through this entire year of life together, one could say that the whole Gospel of Matthew has been moving toward and preparing us for this dramatic parable. In Matthew, Jesus is the great teacher, and in this parable, it is his last formal act of teaching, the grand finale, the fourth movement of the symphony. And soon the curtain will split and fall, and Matthew's gospel account will conclude. There is, however, one problem. Okay, so there are really lots of problems, but there's one problem that really gets my goat. Why not? There are two camps, two breeds of livestock, sheep and goats. One is on the right, the other is on the left. There is a black, there is a white, a right and a wrong, an in and an out. And everything about my education at Bright Divinity School resists dualisms, labeling them as false dichotomies. It's a logical phrase, 5 syllables in length, that we so-called educated types use to discuss the logical fallacy committed when one, and in this case it is Jesus, claims that there's only one conclusion, one of two options, when in fact there are multiple possibilities. Well, I need a third option, Mr. Jesus, if you please. Something to ease the tension, all the while guaranteeing me a seat at your right hand, if you would be so kind. Surely there is a third door here somewhere, another group or some type of hybrid between the sheep and the goats, though I don't really know what that would be. Of course, there is really a third group present in Jesus' parable, which includes the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, and the imprisoned. But they're not at all active in this parable. They are not sorted into sheep or goats. They're really beside the point, ancillary to the conversation, as they always are. Rather, the sheep act upon this group of have-nots, and the goats, well, they just ignore them. Which brings us back to the problem proper. There are sheep, there are goats. There is an A, there is a B, and there's no way to see our way out of it, or that's what we think. Will you pray with me? Sing it over again to us, wonderful word of life. Let us more its beauty see. Wonderful word of life. Word of life and beauty. Teach us faith and duty. Beautiful word, wonderful word, wonderful word of life. Amen. Jesus tells a story not altogether different from the stories of the past 3 weeks that lead us to this point in the gospel story. The Son of Man comes in his glory, and he does not come alone, rather with a troop of angels. And then he, scandal of scandals, will sit on the throne of glory. Every kindred and every tribe on this terrestrial ball will be gathered before him. And this shepherd, who apparently has an alter ego, a drag act, if you will, as a queen or a king, I'm not exactly quite sure, but this Son of Man, as he is known in Matthew's gospel, will begin the process as any reputable shepherd would do of separating people one from another, sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep at chute A, which is at the shepherd's right hand. The goats, of course, he will put at chute B, which is at the shepherd's left. Thus begins the judgment. Judgment troubles me, and maybe it troubles you as well. I don't really want to talk about it, much less preach about it. And preaching about it risks one being labeled as one of those, fire and brimstone types, especially with this passage. We, the people gathered here at Galileo Church, have good reason to shy away from the judgment scene because we have often found ourselves as the victims of the judgment of others. And not just other individuals, but other churches have judged you, and they have judged me too. And beyond individual judgment, this church, even in its infancy, has faced judgment at the hands of many. Galileo is this rainbow flag-waving church, the bleeding heart liberal church, the beer-drinking, taco-eating, cookie-baking, crochet-weaving church. It's too much for Mansfield, too progressive, too radical, too liberal, too... Well, it really doesn't matter what word you put here because there is likely too much of that too. And when Jesus takes his seat and the shepherd outs himself as king, the judgment begins. The sheep and the goats, the in and the out, the right and the left, the right and the wrong. And our skin kind of crawls, or at least mine does, and our blood pressure rises to triple digits because we as a group are the next in line. And we, as we squint, we hear these words about to come across the shepherd's lips, how he purses them for the pronunciation of his next words. We watch for his inhalation of breath as we await our fate. Judgment is uncomfortable at best, and it is final at worst. With the two groups neatly separated, the king inhales and begins to speak to the sheep, those at his right. Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? 3 times they ask the shepherd king, when was it? And the king will answer them, "Cross my heart and hope to die, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family. You did it to me." Then he will say to those at his left hand, "You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Rather than be like the sheep and ask 3 times, When was it? The goats roll it all into one question. Perhaps the goats are in a little bit of a hurry. They answer, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?" See, it's easy. Then he will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." Well, I object, Your Honor. At this point, I have to ask, what the heck? Let me get this straight, Mr. Jesus. Both the sheep and the goats ask, "When was it?" Isn't that a technicality? And Mr. Jesus, you have assumed that both the sheep and the goats have enough resources to do something, to alleviate the oppression of the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, and the imprisoned. And just to be clear, Mr. Jesus, you are telling us that both the sheep and the goats had absolutely no clue of God's preferential treatment for the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, and the imprisoned. How can this be? #WTF. If the sheep had no clue about God's preferential treatment for the underdogs, what mated the sheep to do unto others? Why do it? Perhaps it was to feel warm and, I don't know, woolly? We know these sheep. We are these sheep. Sheep are the Salvation Army bell ringers with those red buckets in front of Macy's. Sheep are those who feel obligated by civic duty, hoping that these moments of charity may relieve us from the burdens of our abundance. Sheep are altruistic to a fault, but sheep are just as blind as the goats to recognizing God's preference in the world. And speaking of goats, who can fault them? They did not recognize God's abiding presence with the lost and least. Maybe if the goats had known this truth at one time, but maybe now they had forgotten. "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?" the goats ask. The Lord answers, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." We could end this morality tale here with an exhortation to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. If one isolates this parable from the larger gospel narrative, one could make the case that one's works are salvific. Following and trusting Jesus are not part of the deal, really. If we are honest with ourselves, and more importantly, if we are honest with the Word, doing good may be golden, but it is not gospel. Doing good alone will not lead to the cross. Doing good is not really much of a scandal. Doing good is doing good for goodness sake. It's just being nice. Surely there must be something more, Mr. Jesus. I object, Your Honor. Lance Poppy, spouse of our lead conspirator, says of the Gospels, "It is not about you. It is about Jesus. The gospel is about God's self-disclosure in Jesus Christ. In other words, the gospel is not a book of basic instructions before leaving earth, but rather an outrageous disclosure that tells the scandal of who God is. We are not the center of the universe, you might say. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. That's the scandal. Christ comes out. Christ comes out as king, and with the fanfare of all kinds of radiant glory and angels too, and glitz and glamour and maybe glitter. But that's not all. The scandal intensifies. Christ comes out as king and then comes out as the hungry. Christ comes out as king and Christ comes out as the thirsty. Christ comes out as king and comes out as the stranger. Christ comes out as king and Christ comes out as the naked. Christ comes out as king and Christ comes out as the sick. Christ comes out as king and Christ comes out as the imprisoned. And beloved of God, once Christ has come out, there is no turning back, no turning back, no turning back to the closets. The scandal is out and has been let loose in the world. And when Christ comes out, the empires of this world will strike back, forcing Christ the king and Christ the oppressed back into the closet. Congress will sue. Charges of impeachment will be brought. Or if none of that works to really shut it down, a Roman cross will do the job to finally expose that this so-called king of the Jews is really just another hungry, thirsty, strange, naked, sick, and imprisoned criminal. But we have heard the story. Everything has led to this day, a grand and glorious coming out for Christ and Christ's church. Because Christ has come out, we know that whatever we do or whatever we don't do, we do it to Christ. Yes, Christ comes out as king, so we come out as a church that is genderqueer. Christ comes out as king, and so we come out as a church that provides sanctuary. Christ comes out as king, and so we come out as a church that is one with victims of systemic racism. Christ comes out as king, and so we come out as a church that is one with those on death row in Huntsville, Texas. Christ comes out as king, and so we come out as the church that is one with those who are the last, lost, and least. Christ comes out as king, and so we come out as a church that is one with those who seek equal distribution of God's abundance. Beloved of God, rejoice. The Lord Christ is king. Lift up your heart, lift up your voice, rejoice. Again, I say rejoice, for every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill is going to be made low, and the uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places made as plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people, red, yellow, black, white, gay, straight, in between, sheep and goats, we will all see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. Is it true? Is it meaningful? The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.